So the shot that we're animating is this baseball shot. This was requested on the stream as a body mechanics test to show like how would I approach analyzing the shot, how I would approach blocking it. And so far what we've done is we've analyzed the reference. We've gone through, found our key poses up here through the reference. We've analyzed the reference itself to figure out how the character is moving, what do we want, how we've planned out our constraint setups, we've modeled props for our shot. And the last time we had done a quick previs layout pass with a little bit of blocking. Now, what I mean by previs and layout is that in this shot, what we've done is set up first a camera rig right here. This is the Josh cam. I should have prepped the link here earlier, but let me get it here for you. This is a free rig, camera rig. If you're in Animation Mentor, you can just find it in the assets, so you can just check it there. But I'll post this again here just for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's a free camera rig, and I prefer to use these types of camera rigs when I have a camera move. And in this case, we do have a camera move. As the character walks off screen, you can see that the camera is moving back and kind of craning up right there ever so slightly. Now, once we had that, what we also did in order to get the camera move and make sure that everything was framed is that we did a quick layout pass. The layout pass was essentially, let's see if I can hide the other jewels here. Boop. Right there. We just imported a version of the rig and just had the character slide through and kind of figure out where the character would walk and use that as a way to frame up our shot and get our camera in place. This was not meant to be perfect. This layout pass or previs pass is essentially just a way to troubleshoot areas before we start posing things out and taking the extra time to refine our poses. If I'm halfway through animating 12 poses and I find out, my camera move is not working and my camera needs to be totally repositioned, I've just wasted a lot of time and I might have to redo a bunch of poses, especially for a very dynamic, action-heavy shot. By doing a quick previs, and it was pretty quick, like a previs like this would normally take maybe 20 minutes, if that, depending on the complexity. I can get a camera in place and pretty much almost finalized in very little time. Now, we did have to make a tweak. Essentially, the first pass of the shot, once we started posing out the character, so we took our previs, hid that. It's still there in case we need it. Brought in another character, and once we posed the character out, I found that the silhouette that I was getting wasn't quite clear, so I just moved my whole camera setup over. And now we've got a character that is reframed, and I still have all my camera animation that I did, and it's ready to go. So from there, I did a very quick, this is technically a blocking pass, but it's like first pass of a blocking pass. It's something I wouldn't show to a director. I might show to maybe another animator, maybe my supervisor, if I really needed to get confirmation that, hey, is this the right way? Is this what you want? If their storyboards weren't clear, or if there were maybe no storyboards and I just want to get a quick buy off. The quick setup was just these very rough poses. So everything except the first pose here, you can see are very, very rough. There's no facial expression. The hands are very basic. The poses are not that interesting to look at. But it's essentially to make sure that my framing works correctly, that my character is moving through the scene at the right speed, that the idea works. That's pretty much the main goal of it. Now, if I hit splines here, I tend to animate in splines. So if I just play, you'll notice that we get this horror and this part, my favorite part, where his hair is supposed to pop back up, but we haven't gotten to that yet. You can see that it's super, super rough. But these poses, this is not, again, what I would classify as my blocking pass. This is not something I would show my mentor if you're an animation mentor or a school. It's not something I would show my director, ideally. This is just ideation. It's putting the idea out there, making sure it works, and that I'm happy with it before I now go in and spend more time refining and putting more poses in. What I don't want to do is to just jump into the shot, look at my reference and go, okay, let's animate, and just put every pose in, all my keys, everything like really detailed, try to make them all pretty right from the start. Because then if something changes, I've just wasted time. Now, with all of this stuff, all of this animation, I think it took us 3 or 4 hours on stream to do it, but that's with a lot of talking and explanation and the whys and the hows and all of that stuff. If this was just me animating on my own, this whole pass up to what I have here maybe would have taken an hour, maybe a little bit more. It depends on how many revisions and stuff I needed to do. So within an hour, I've got my camera locked down. I've got my composition locked down. I've bought off on my idea, and now I'm ready to start blocking my shot. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to make changes. There might be changes that come up along the way as we start blocking in and refining our poses. But ideally, those changes should not be major changes. They should just be small little tweaks here and there, maybe an adjustment to the camera here, maybe a few pose tweaks here and there. That's going to be normal. But I'm not going to be halfway through the shot and going, oh shoot, the camera needs to be 60 degrees over there, and it's going to ruin every silhouette that I've just spent 5 hours on. So this is something I would recommend everyone kind of have some variation of it. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it here, but there should be some sort of planning process to your work. The worst thing you can do in most cases is to just take your reference, or sometimes you're not even going to have reference, and just jump into animating and just go right there, right from the start, and dive into it. Because more often than not, something's going to come up, and if you haven't planned for it, if you haven't kind of prepped, it can sometimes just be a bump in the road and okay, keep on going. Other times it can literally knock the tire off of your car and you're just going to grind to a halt and have to either redo work or just force your way through it, which is never fun. One of my key elements when I work on a shot is I want to work smart and I want to work efficiently. If I am working in a way that I have to fight the program, if I have to fight the constraints, if I have to fight the rig, if I have to fight anything, no, I will try to find a way to avoid that, because that is just wasted time, at least to me. So yeah, all of that just to explain what we're doing now, which at this point, we are now just going into blocking, which is going to be me just starting from here. We've got our first pose in. I'm just going to kind of go ahead to my next key, put that in, and essentially we're going to just keep going forward until we reach these other poses, and we're going to redo those poses with the body mechanics that we've built along the way, because these ones are just kind of, they're kind of in the right spot, but a lot of the mechanics aren't quite there. They were just fast placeholders. So I would much rather build up to them and then make sure that my mechanics are working correctly. So that's going to be the goal for today. I don't know how far we're going to go. It depends on how fast I can explain things or how many tangents I go on, but we'll see. And Wookie, thank you so much for the reminder. That helps a lot. So let's take a look at our shot here. So in our reference, this is the pose we've done. Now you'll notice that it's not quite the same. I exaggerated the angle of the character. I've pushed the line of action a little bit more, especially from this view here. I pushed him further back. These are all things that might change. I might end up having the character a little bit more forward here, just so we can have a little bit more of a slide backwards. I'm going to see. This is all stuff that is going to change. Once again, blocking, just because I finish one pose, it doesn't mean I can't go back and adjust it. When I finish a pose, it just means that it's in place and I can go to the next one and it's ready to be edited at any point. No pose is safe really until the shot is sent off and you don't work on it anymore. At any point, you can adjust any pose. So our next pose is going to be here, which is not going to be a big change, but it's just the character kind of leaning over slightly. Now, one thing that I like to do when I'm analyzing my reference is I like to just skip between the two keys and just like this, go from one frame to the next. And let's hide the drawing so we don't get those in the way. Just do this. And I try to look at what is the thing that catches my eye most. What am I feeling? And what I'm feeling is the elbows are kind of leading the action and then pulling the back forward. So the elbows moving down, that's the biggest action. Then we have a little bit of motion in the back. The hips are moving down slightly. The head stays up, but is moving forward. He's leaning over towards the plate here. And the baseball bat is kind of coming down over onto the shoulder right there. And then the hips, let's scrub through here a little bit. He's putting more weight on his back leg, the screen left leg. So he's kind of anticipating, ready for the swing where his hips are going to move screen right. And this is the other thing that you want to do. Look at what's going to happen next. So I'm going to just kind of scrub through here. So he's coming down, anticipating, moving his hips onto the supporting leg, screen left, before he lifts his screen right foot and swings forward. So I'm just trying to kind of get a mental image of where I'm going to go, where the character has been, and what changes do I need to put on this key here. And that's just going to help me make sure that as I'm posing this, I'm not just moving things randomly and hoping for the best. I'm making informed choices. And this kind of is the backbone of, at least the way I like to animate. I don't like to just move things for the sake of moving things. The moment that I start doing that is the moment that I need to take a step back. And sorry, my mustache has curled up and tickling my nose. Why? It has betrayed me. So see, this is what happens when you're tired and you didn't have time to like make sure your mustache doesn't betray you and stab you in the nose or in the back. So what was I saying? Yeah, I don't want to animate in a way that I am just winging it, because the moment that happens, it means that I have not prepped enough. I need to take a step back, think through things, come back in. If I am just going, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. Let's move things and find out if it works out. More likely than not, I'm just wasting time. So let's see. Right here, we're going to be on frame 12. So I'm going to set a key here. And you can see this is the splines that Maya is giving us. So this is just the default splines, nothing special, just sliding through. And it doesn't look great. It's just bleh. The feet are not holding still. The whole character is sliding around. Not great. Well, if we look at our reference, we can find out what should stay still. Well, the feet don't really move that much. There is actually a little bit of motion right here. You can actually see his foot. Beep. It just kind of adjusts a little bit on screen left there. And the screen right foot kind of presses in a little bit more. So the feet don't have to stay perfectly locked in place, but for the most part, they stay in place. So I'm just going to take my foot controls. And if you don't have any plugins, essentially what I can do is take my pose from frame 6 right here, middle mouse drag to frame 12, and hit S to set a key. And now the feet stay still right there. Now let's actually add a little bit of that motion in there. So just going to double check my reference. I'm not trying to copy my reference. This is a key element here. The last thing I want to do is copy my reference and just essentially trace over it. No, I'm going to exaggerate elements. I'm going to add elements, and I'm going to remove elements from there. But I do want to look at my reference and be inspired by little movements that I might not think about. So for example, this foot right here twists and just kind of beep, goes back right here. So we get that little bit of a twist right on that foot. And it looks like I didn't key this foot for some reason. So let's do that. If you have Animbot, you can just copy it back using the tween tool right there. And for some reason my translates are not copying over. There we go. So we've got the one foot adjusting slightly, and then the other foot, if we look at it again in the reference, is kind of tilting to the side and raising ever so slightly as he's kind of pulling back. So I could just maybe use a little bit of the side to side right here and just kind of tilt that foot ever so slightly. Just a little bit. So we kind of feel that pull on that leg as he's going to be going back. Now, this is the other element here, is when you just tween things or just set a key in spline mode and it's just kind of sliding through, your poses are more than likely not going to be correct. And this is one of the biggest issues that I see when students are first learning how to spline using a tween machine tool or some sort of tween tool, is you'll see that the hips, in my case on frame 12, are moving screen right. That's where Maya put it. If I was to use a tween tool right here, you'll see that it moves screen right, like so. That's not what the hips are doing. They're supposed to move screen left. The hips are supposed to, let's go through here. I'm just going to set this back to world mode. Go back this way, like so. They also come down slightly and they go backwards. He's going to be leaning forwards slightly. If he is leaning his body forwards, his hips more than likely are going backwards. If we look at our reference, you'll notice that you can't really see that. Right here, we can see his head and body moving forward right there. But if you look at the hips, it's very hard to see what's happening. This is where understanding body mechanics is important. Even though I don't have a side view, even though I can't see what's really happening, I know that body mechanics wise, if you lean your body forward, your hips have to go back to balance you out. That's not always the case. It depends on if you're holding any weight. There's a lot of factors that can go into that and change it. But in this case, his hips are going to go back. So very quickly, I can just make sure that right here, the hips go back slightly. And we're already starting to add that natural motion in there. Now it's going to be super rough. This is not trying to make it perfect and get all the motion pixel perfect. Nuh-uh. I'm just kind of getting the rough blocking in there. And then from there, I can refine it and ease it just right the way I want. Now, another element here is he's putting weight on his screen left leg. This should cause his hips to kind of shift their weight over this way, like so. So we're going to have that little bit of a weight shift here. And then I'm going to tone down that rotate Y. Now his hips look like they're still going forward quite a bit here. There we go. So we get that weight shift in there. Maybe a little too much right there. Shifting over. His knee is definitely going to have to adjust there so it doesn't slide in. So we've got something like that. Now his body is not working correctly. His body needs to lean down further. So he's going to be leaning forward. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking at my perspective view. I'm just going to go back and forth. And as he goes through here, I need his head to be lower. If I look at my reference, watch here. His head is up there. Boop. It goes down. We feel that lowering of the head, especially in the shoulders. You can really feel those shoulders coming down there. So I want to be able to feel that as I go back and forth here. I want to feel that change of the body going down right there. And then I'm looking at it from the side view, making sure that the mechanics are working correctly. I feel like the hips are maybe rotating just a little bit too much. That's better. So I want the hips to counter the motion, but I don't want them to over counter the motion, if that makes sense. Okay. So he's coming down. We're not going to try to refine this super perfectly just yet. The next thing I need to do is grab the baseball bat, which I believe is this control, the main control here. And I'm just going to copy it back to the previous pose, because the baseball bat is essentially just going to come down. Kind of back a little bit, a little lower. Or actually, I think, does it go higher? Again, this is where reference is nice. Yeah, it actually straightens out a little bit. Now, this is another area that you have to be careful of, which is what I typically call invisible strings. Invisible strings is when you have 2 points in your animation, and as something changes, the relationship between the two stay the same. So, for example, let's say you have a character moving their body like this, and you have the hand over here, and it's also waving over this way. But they move at the same time, so what you get is this. See how the hand and the head, if I was to draw a string between the two and connect that, it just moves together. It's almost like they're tied together. Instead, I would want either something like this to happen, where the head comes closer and then the hand goes further away, or like this. The hand leads and then the head follows. So what I'm looking for is any time I'm doing these big changes, if I feel like, let's see what was happening here, like this, or where was it? Right here. See how the bat and the arms, as the arms are going down, the bat feels like it just kind of follows and does the exact same motion. I don't like that. It makes it feel stiff and boring. So I'm going to try and exaggerate that so we feel the hands coming down, and then the bat has this kind of more subtle motion in there. Okay. So it comes down here. I think, let's see. It's an IK, or yeah, technically an IK. It's following the bat. So I do want to make sure I'm pushing the arms in an arc here from the front view. Also from the side here. Make sure it's kind of following along. I'm trying to make sure it looks good from all angles. Okay. So that works pretty well. I feel like my clavicles definitely need to kind of relax a little bit here. Especially the screen right one. Just a little bit. Maybe come forward a little bit more. Something like that. The head stays pretty still, but I do want some sort of change in there. So it doesn't just stay locked off. But as I'm doing this, I'm still thinking of my reference. What did I see change the most? The elbows. The elbows were the things that really moved in that shot. Now, when I'm doing this, what I'm feeling is that the head is moving a lot. So I'm going to tone that down again, like this. And already, now the elbows feel like they're the ones leading the action. So we can get a little bit more of that. Let's see. The body can start to twist back just a tiny scooch, just to avoid things feeling locked off, and maybe back a little bit as well. Something like this, or maybe I'll drag the body. We'll see. So now you can see how we feel that shift in the body. It's moving, it's adjusting. It doesn't feel like it's just sliding as if it's an action figure that's just being moved across the screen. And I'm still trying to get those elbows to feel like they are leading the action. Right there. And to push that even more, what I can do is have the elbows actually come in a little bit more. Something like that. So a lot of it is just kind of paying attention to the details in your animation. And what do you feel changing? So I think for now this is pretty good. It's definitely going to need some refinement, but I've got the core in there for now. It might change. There's nothing is set in stone here. So let's go to the next pose. The next pose, we've got the foot kind of going forward here, and the hips as well go forward. So we had a little bit of anticipation. Now everything's sliding. So this is frame 20. My mustache betrays me again. It's gonna make me sneeze at some point. See. So this foot still has a little bit of slide to it, a little rotation. I could probably tone that down in the graph editor, but usually I animate with the graph editor open all the time. I want you all to be able to see what I'm doing a little bit more clearly, so I don't have it open right now. Normally I do try to keep it open as I'm working. Okay, so we've got that in there. Now if we look at the screen right foot, it's stepping forward and we've got this nice angle to it. So I'm just going to roll this up here, get that nice slide of the foot there. And then let's see, in my previous blocking, I kind of got the toes right around here. So I could probably put that foot like right around there. Because I already did a layout pass, I've got an idea of how far I kind of want that foot to be. It doesn't have to be there. I'm just kind of using that as a guide for now. And then afterwards I can always just readjust it. Because the hips are going to have to go forward. And this is where now I want to see how far forward are the hips moving. You can see that they actually move quite a bit right there. But the weight is still centered in... Got to draw it with my mouse here. So if we look at the center line here, it's still favoring this leg right there. I don't know if you can see the drawing I just did there. Should probably set this brush to be a little bit bigger. Right. Oh, that didn't make it any bigger. There we go. Right there. So I'm looking between those legs. Where is his weight? So as I'm going over here, I can move that forward, but I'm not going to move it forward so that it's in the center here. I'm going to keep it favoring the back. Now, once again, look for your invisible strings. Right here, as I move the hips and the foot, see how the hip and foot almost feel like they're linked together? If I look at my reference, we feel like the foot is leading the action. So let's bring those hips back there or push the hip or the foot further forward. The hips are going to come down. They're anticipating. Oops. Right there. I can exaggerate this. Let it go really far down so we get that nice swoop through. I definitely need to adjust this knee. See how in these two poses that knee doesn't change and then suddenly it just boonk, bends in right there? I would want to anticipate that just a little bit, get a little bit more of a bend in here, and then it pops in just a little bit. So it doesn't just kind of come out of nowhere. Okay. Now you'll also notice that I'm animating with my silhouette turned on. This is not something that you have to do, but once in a while, especially when I'm doing a complex shot with like this character spinning and twisting and he's got a bat and I want to make sure that it reads correctly, I do like to keep the silhouette on like that at all times. This way I just know that I'm not messing up my silhouette right through there. Okay. Now, let's go over the hips again. So the hips are going forward right there. Okay. They're going to twist some more right here. And if we look at our reference, I'm going to look at what's happening with the twist. They're twisting away this way right now. So his whole body is kind of twisting around and kind of anticipating this wind up here. His body is twisting as well and leaning even further down. So we have a little bit of motion in the body. Now we're coming down through everything. Now you'll notice that I twisted the hips with the cog right here to get that twist. This is where you have to make a choice. I can twist with the cog, but then you'll see that it twists the body. Or I could twist the hips right here, and then I have independent control over the body twist. This is where every shot is different. There's no one answer. For me, at least on this first pass, I'm going to be using the cog mostly because I'm not sure what I want. So if I use the cog, it kind of gets me most of the way there. But at any time I can make a choice and go, you know what, this isn't working. Let's switch. And if we run into that, I'll show you how I would approach switching through all of that. Okay. Now, one thing that I'm seeing here that I really like in my reference and I'm not getting in my shot here is see the line of action in the character on the screen left side. You get that nice line right through there. Very sharp. And then you get a nice flow on the other side. I'm missing that right now. I'm not getting that really nice sharp line, essentially kind of right through there and in the back. So I'm going to try and exaggerate that right through here. Now, the important thing here is his back isn't actually bent over. This is again where you have to think of your body mechanics. As he's coming through here, his back is actually straightening and he's twisting instead. So I'm actually going to reset my spine controls here. This is something I do all the time. If I start to feel like, oh, something's not quite right, I'm going to start to reset things so that I can build them up correctly. So it's going to have less rotate X here. And instead, the character is going to be leaning forward from the hips a little bit more. And now we're getting that line that we were seeing in our reference. So we're getting that reversal right through there. Let me zero that out. Don't need that. Okay. Now, I'm not a fan of this silhouette I'm getting. It just kind of feels weird. So I will try to round out the back a little bit. Just a little. And then maybe round it out through here. We'll see. So how does that feel? Yeah, that feels better. We feel that straightening of the back now, right through there. I think I can exaggerate the rotation this way. Let's see. Let's actually get the head in place a little bit. The head's going to keep turning this way. Angle a little bit more. And it's going to tuck right into that shoulder right here. So the shoulder is going to kind of come up there. Twist. And I'm going to really want to pose out this section. See how the body is just kind of feeling, oh, twisted and kind of broken right there? I don't want that. I want this to feel nice and essentially organic. So I just need to watch my spine posing right through here. Still get that silhouette. I just cut the bat right through his head. Still get that silhouette and that angle through there. Something like that. Okay. Let's keep pushing certain things. Now, one thing I'm not liking is the silhouette of his body right here. It's a little flat. So I can exaggerate either this curvature here. Try to bend that a little bit more. Or, once again, push the other controls around. And this is just a balance. There's no right or wrong answer here. Well, it's wrong if it looks wrong. If it doesn't look good. That's essentially it. See, let's kind of get the rest of the body in here first. Okay, so let me just look at the bat. I want to see the mechanics that are happening here. So he's going down and then out. So the bat is going to go way over here and back. Let's make sure that elbow is not breaking there. Yep. Rotate this way. Having a good constraint setup really makes this a lot easier. If you're having to fight your constraints as you're doing stuff like this, it's not fun. Okay. Let's bring this elbow up so we can clear up the silhouette. Now I'm looking at the bat here and see how it wiggles? I don't want that. If I look at the bat in my reference, see how it doesn't wiggle? It just kind of goes down, kind of an arc screen right, and then left. It's very simple. That's what I want that feeling to have here. So it should kind of go down. Right there, maybe a little less. And then it needs to go screen left. Like that. Nice and simple. Let's see. I'm watching the hands, trying to see what arc I want the hands to be in. Nice and simple. Get the bat in place. Now, I'm kind of just doing this by eye. The other thing you can do with this is use the grease pencil tool and actually draw in your arcs that you want to have. I actually do that quite often, actually, because I find it helps me just visualize things a little bit more clearly. Let's see. The shoulder's going to come in. I want to make sure I don't really see some negative space in between both arms. It's just going to add a lot of confusion in there. So I do want to kind of close that off there a little bit. Bring this shoulder kind of forward there. Just so we have that silhouette. Okay. There we go. Now, as I'm doing this, one thing I'm feeling is that, okay, yay, I'm doing this. At this point, the mechanics feel pretty good. And Peter, thank you so much for the sub. Aw, thank you so much. 2 months, geez. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So, as we're looking at this, the mechanics are feeling like they work. The character's going forward and they take a step right there. Right through here. The problem, though, is that Does it feel interesting? Meh, not really, no. And what's happening is that I'm following my reference, yes. I'm getting the mechanics in there from my reference, which is great, but I'm not pushing anything. I'm not exaggerating. So what I'm getting is motion that feels correct, but doesn't look good. So this is where exaggeration comes in. How can I make this better than what I'm seeing in my shot, in my reference? How can I make it more interesting? And there's a lot of different ways to do this. There's no one way. In my case, what I can do is as the character comes back here, let's push the hips further back. So as they come back here, we kind of push further screen left. And then as he comes forward here, we don't have the hips go quite as far forward. So this way we can feel that anticipation back. He starts to come down. And as he does this, this leg, let's exaggerate it. Let's bring it out further. And again, this is where things will change. That's not a bad thing. But now suddenly we have this motion here where you really feel that leg go out a little bit more versus just kind of that little tiny move that we had before. Now I still want the foot and the hips to be the thing that read most clearly. So I'm going to be very conscious of how far I'm pushing that. Let's actually also move the neck here. When you're moving the neck, you want to be careful. Don't go too far with it. In my case, I want him to really kind of bring his head down here. Maybe a little bit right there. Let's try to get that lean, the line of action of the body. I want the line of action to kind of go through into the head a little bit more here. It kind of goes all the way through. Now, is the pose complete? Definitely not. It definitely needs some more work, but we're getting there. So one thing I was noticing is as I look at the elbow, it kind of goes down and then it was going a little bit up. So I want to kind of keep that hand going through there. Down. Okay. Let's kind of call it here for now. Once again, you can polish these types of things until the end of days. It just never ends. But at some point, I do need to go forward to the next pose so that I can see where it's supposed to go. And then I can come back here and make changes. Because one thing I'm already noticing is that bat kind of feels a little weird, the way it kind of goes back here a little bit. So I might kind of bring it back here some more. There we go, something like that. So still looking at it from the other views here. And this foot's rotating just a little too much. Yep. There we go. Okay. Let's call that done for now. It's definitely not my favorite line of action. The silhouette is still kind of muddy. I'm not a huge fan of this pose. What I can do later on, just as an example, is I could add a little bit more squash to the pose, bring him down, something like that. I could add more bend. There's a lot of different things I can do, but I'm not going to make that choice yet because I want to see where he's going to go. So the next pose is going to be the swing through right here, which this is the pose we already have right there. But at this point, we can now improve it, make it a little bit better. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the facial expression on here first, just so we have that in place. Right there. I'm going to do a facial pass later. There's not really a point in doing big facial animation changes up until you get the body in place, because the body is going to determine a lot of what the character is actually or how we as the animator need to pose the face. One thing I will do though is make sure I have the eye direction in place there. Okay. So we go from here into that pose right there. Now with this pose, I do need to improve this foot position. Let's look at our reference. What's happening to the back foot? It twists and is essentially rolling on the ball of the foot and then onto the toes. So I'm going to take the previous foot position, boop, right there, roll it up onto there. And there's a lot of different ways you could do this. You could use the toe tap, or sorry, no, not toe tap, toe twist attribute and roll it that way. You can use all sorts of different attributes. You could use the ball twist right there. For me personally, I actually just like to use the rotate Y, just because it's one less thing that I have to try and clean up. The less attributes that I have to clean later on, usually I prefer that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a locator, place it where I want the foot to pivot from. So again, rotate from the ball of the foot right around here and then to the toes. And then I can just go beep, beep, right there. And we get that nice rotation and slide right there. Just like that. And I'm going to see, you're going to use a little toe twist, ball twist to get the angle of the foot in place right there. Now let me double check the next pose. Does the foot keeps, yeah, it keeps twisting there. So I don't want to go too far or else later on I'm going to have to break his foot. So maybe let's try this far. Something along those lines. So twist, and there's going to be a little slide back, so that's fine. Now the other foot is going and slipping backwards. That's because we over-exaggerated where the step went. So let's look at our reference. You can see that he steps, and then his foot hits with the toe and grinds to a halt. So I would want this foot here to be around where it is over there. So what I'm going to do is just copy that position there, and then once again just look at your reference. You can see how it hits the ground and then grinds, heel comes towards us. Once again, you can just create a locator, move it right around where his toe is going to hit the ground there, and then I can just see his foot's going to be flat on the ground here. So zero out the foot roll. Let's zero out the toe twists and all of those. Don't need those. And then just see, is that foot up in the air? Side to side, yeah. There's a little side to side. Okay, turn that off. Double check my attributes. Okay, good. And the foot is going to be somewhere around here. So now as the foot comes through, not quite. I'm going to move my foot or my locator right here to where the ball of the foot should be, the toe, I should say. And then so something like that. Now again, you might think, well, why don't you use the ball twist or heel twist or any of those things? Those are great. There's nothing wrong with them. And in certain situations, I do prefer them. But in something like this, where the foot's going to be sliding and scratching across the ground, these extra attributes have a very specific pivot point a lot of times on most rigs, which is usually right in the center of the foot, not on the left side, not on the right side, right in the middle. But when he's hitting on the edge of his foot with the big toe, the pad of the big toe, and that's the point that's going to pivot, not the center of the foot, the side of the foot. So by just using this locator, I can just make that happen. I can just put it where I want it to be. And now we've got that nice twist, and you can feel, if you just look at those feet, there's that kind of solidity to them. They are sliding, yes, but they are pivoting and sliding from very specific points. And that's what I'm going for here. Okay. Now let's go through here and start posing things through. The character goes forward. What are the hips doing? Are they going up or down? They're going up a little bit. Let's see. This is a very violent hit. They go forward. And then they're coming towards us. Yeah, so right here, the hips should start to come towards us this way a little bit more. They're definitely going to have to move more forward because we pushed that front leg. They can definitely go down a lot more. It's going up, but it's not going up that much. We want the swing to be the big thing that we feel, not the hips just popping up. Let's see, this knee I feel is pretty good. We can maybe adjust it a little later. The other knee is working pretty well too. The hips. Definitely there's going to be more rotation this way. But I think overall it's not bad where it is. And Tara, thank you for keeping me alive. Wookie and Tara, just making sure I don't wither up into a raisin. That actually feels much better. So we go through here. Now, one thing I'm feeling in my reference that I'm not really seeing here is the side twist. If I kind of look at my character, I'm not really feeling that crunch up on that side. And if I look at the character here, notice the head of the character doesn't really move that high, whereas his hips are moving up quite a bit right here. So he's still kind of twisting downwards a little bit. His head is still going to move upwards slightly, but I want that twist and maybe just a little bit more lean forward here. Just a little bit. The head is definitely moving forward, but if you kind of watch the neck, it stays pretty much in place. So he's crunching his head in here. Now, as I'm saying this, this is not to say that I'm trying to replicate this and make this like 100% accurate. It is not that at all. What this is trying to capture the mechanics of it all, make it feel real, but also exaggerate the moments that I need to exaggerate, so that I can get something that is a unique and interesting performance. And I think I'm using the wrong neck controllers here. Yeah, so let me zero this out. I thought I was using the wrong one. That's fine. I was using the middle neck control, which is on this rig more of a bend bow control. So it adjusts the curvature of the neck, which is not bad, but for most neck motions, I'm going to want to use the lower control. It'll give me more natural rotations. So for example here, that's going to be a much more natural rotation, and then I can use this one to either bend the neck or adjust that curve ever so slightly. I'm going to push the shoulders up more here just to get that. I want that turtle effect essentially. And if I feel like I can't get it quite right, I can always just take the head and just go right in there. That's a little too much. I can even just take the head and lurch it forward if I really wanted to get that bend in there. That's starting to feel a little too much. There's a point where it needs to go back a little bit. Okay. Now the arms, they're all broken. I'm not worried about that right now. I'm just kind of looking at the body here. Swing. I feel like the hips need more visual change. So if I'm looking at the silhouette right now, and I'm looking at the hips, there's this big swing, but the hips don't really feel like they're doing much. Let's look at the reference. Yeah, the hips don't actually do too much. They actually start going backwards a little bit. Let's see. So this is where, as I'm thinking about this, I'm trying to think, okay, where can I exaggerate? What do I want to feel here? Do I want to exaggerate the hips and make those go forward? Do I want to exaggerate the head motion? Do I want to exaggerate the bat motion? And there's no real wrong choice here, because this is my shot and my character, and this character doesn't necessarily have to swing a bat correctly. With that said, if it doesn't look good, then it's not right. So that's kind of the criteria here, is what's going to look good. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that the wrist is broken right here. That's not good. Luckily, I set up a constraint setup that should allow me to just go whoop, adjust that wrist in place there, so that I'll be able to adjust the hand and the hand pose. Now, I'm not going to adjust the hand pose just yet, because I don't know if this is going to be what I actually want. So I'm just going to get it kind of close right here. And then once I have confirmation that, yeah, this feels good, I can pose out the fingers right there. So he swings. I feel like this shoulder is a little too high. I kind of want that pull through the character. Right there. Let's take this, kind of move it. Whoop. Find a happy medium. Maybe bring this forward too. Now my angle is different than the reference, so I'm not going to try and match it exactly. What I'm trying to do is make a very strong line through the character to make it as powerful as possible. And I think maybe the bat can go up a little higher. Maybe. Or maybe a little lower. Yeah, a little lower. So something like that. This way we kind of get this swoop right in here, as well as the line of action through here. Okay, so we're getting that feeling in there. That's better. Now, is this pose complete? No, not at all. But it's getting there. Now, I would normally wait a little bit to pose out the hand here. But just to kind of show visually what I would need to do now is I need to repose this hand a little bit. So that it's holding on more to the bat. So what I can do is just take my locators here and kind of nudge them around. Beep. A little bit more that way, just a little bit. And then just open up the fingers so that we feel like the hand is stretching as he holds it. Something like that. This is going to be super rough because there's no point going in a lot of detail if I'm going to change it later. So I'm just going to keep it very rough. Something like that. But now we've got that swing through. Okay. And you can see it's still rough. There's a lot of stuff that I can still improve here, but I'm not trying to get every little detail just right. Once I have a good solid section, maybe like after the swing, and during the hold that he does right here, maybe then I could go, okay, you know, I've got that pretty solid. Let's go in and fine tune a little bit more. But at least for now, I want to make sure that I'm not going too far too fast. So let's go into this section here. So once again, I'm just going to copy over the face. And just to get a little bit of character in there. Oops, and there's the clavicle. And let's actually save too. This does have a Tron feeling to it. I haven't seen Tron in a long time. It is an interesting movie. I do like it. Okay, so let's look at what's happening here. So front foot keeps rotating, but now it's rotating from the outside toe. It hit with the big toe, comes to a stop, and it's rotating. The momentum is pushing it onto the outside toe. The back foot has gone onto the tiptoes and then kind of crushed down onto the little toe as well. So I'm going to try and capture that feeling in both feet there. So with this foot here, I want it to slide. Then this foot is in the wrong spot, so let's move it back like that. And then it's going to rotate. Now I could just use this locator since I know that the other poses are pretty much in the right spot. I want it to rotate from here. So let's kind of bip, put it in there. And I'm going to use a little bit more ball twist to go the other way here. And you can see now as he goes through, we feel that ankle almost break right there. Now that might be a little too much. It depends on how far I want to go with it. But we feel that kind of swing and pressure happen there. Now I do want to see his heel. I think it comes down. I could be wrong. Yeah, definitely goes down. So I'm actually, I think I can exaggerate the foot roll up here so that we really feel it come down there. And actually, I could push this even more so it's almost pointed in. So we really feel that twist of the foot there. Okay. So what I'm feeling right now as I'm going through is I'm looking at the arc of the heel, and what I was feeling is I rotated it too far this way, which was making it so that the heel, the spacing of the heel was right in the center. So you had pose here, and the arc was right in the center. I don't want that. I want to try and push the arc to be a little bit more, to favor one side more than the other. Now, the front foot definitely needs to be back in the other position here. And like we said before, it's going to roll onto the outside edge here. A little bit more. And it's going to be sliding and pushing against that big, or the little toe right there. So kind of right here, like that. Too much. So now I'm scrubbing through, I'm looking at the feet, and I feel like both feet are just moving together. And what I mean by together, of course they're moving together, they're both moving, is I don't see one foot catching my attention more than the other. They both kind of catch my attention equally. I don't want that. One foot should definitely lead more than the other. Now you can definitely see how our old pose was not really interesting here. This was just a placeholder. The line of action is perfectly straight. It's boring. It's bleh. So let's try to exaggerate that a little bit. The feet are pretty much in place for now. So let's look at what's happening with the hips. So they go over, and now he's shifting a lot of his weight onto his back foot here. So his hips are coming over towards us because he's going to be lifting his front foot. So right here, there's this big weight shift. Whoop, this way. He swings across, boom, shifts over. The other reason for that is he's swung all of the weight screen right, the bat and his whole body, which means that his hips have to counter that motion or else he'll just fall over. So let's push that. His hips, I don't think they go up. No, actually they actually go down slightly. So you can definitely see how our mechanics before were a little off. And then I feel like we can exaggerate the leg posing here. The hips should go, yeah, back. There's a twist in there. Okay. I'm just feeling the hips right now, trying to see how I'm liking the position and the way the hips move. I'm trying not to look at the spine, just getting an idea of how the hips are reacting. Okay, let's say that's okay for now. I feel like the body, we had this big lean back. To make it feel more powerful, I'll try to go for a lean forward here. Let's just double check our reference. Yeah, he's kind of going to a reverse C right here, or sorry, a C shape. So let's start transitioning into that right here. And this foot's too high. Okay. So I'm just trying things here. Trying to feel out how I want this line of action to go. His hips were back here. I don't want them flipping too fast here. And that's, I think, what I was feeling is the hips kind of just rotated and crashed, essentially. I want the body to be the thing that really kind of ricochets, I guess you could say, as he swings across. And already that's getting us a much stronger line of action. And we get a nice strong reversal right through there. At this point, I kind of want more of a straight versus a full reversal, though. Specifically because as the next poses come through, he's going to keep crunching down. So if I crunch him down too far right now, again, things might change. This is all just getting things in place. If I push it too far right now, I'm going to have to crunch him in half later. Now, if he's shifting onto this foot, technically his weight should start to shift over this way. But I'm going to hold off on that. I kind of want the stronger line of action right now. Okay. Uh, One thing that's always helpful is look at your shot from multiple angles. Like right here, what I'm noticing is he has this kind of big forward lunge right here. Then his body stops and then it pops again. Now, is that a bad thing? Yeah, not necessarily. But I could maybe tone this down here just a little bit. And that just kind of smooths it out a little bit more. So one thing I'm noticing is the hips go back and the head lunges forward a lot. He's essentially catapulting his head forward. So I do want to capture that feeling, which I'm getting a little bit of right there, but I think I need more neck rotation here. So let's just rotate that forward. And let's try to keep the back a little further back here. So we feel the head kind of leading the action a little bit more. Okay. So let's kind of keep it here for now. We could keep nitpicking the spine till the end of days, but once again, the thing that we're trying to do here is to work quickly and to figure out the body mechanics as we go. If I'm trying to perfect every pose, maybe the next pose, I did something wrong here that I didn't notice, and as I go to the next pose, it's going to change everything. So I don't want to spend a ton of time like just going crazy over every single detail here. Instead, I want to try and get something built in quick, feel it out, make sure it feels okay, and then from there, start refining. Just trying some different spine angles here. Now, one thing that is definitely fighting me is the silhouette of this arm here. So I do need to change that. As he swings through, the bat should essentially be something like that. So just to kind of explain what I'm thinking of here is I'm trying to find a good match between silhouette, and I should save, a good balance between the silhouette of the character, making sure the silhouette is nice and clean and clear, while also making sure my anatomy isn't broken to pieces. So I want like this very clear bat so we can really feel it swing around right there. But then from this view, you can see how that hand is just like broken and just there. I kind of want to avoid that as well. And it would be nice if I could get the silhouette of the elbow out on the other side there. That would be nice. Again, I'm not trying to get this perfectly anatomically correct because I might change things quite a bit in terms of where does the bat line up? What arc do I want this to swing into? All of that stuff. So always be... You always want to think through what you're doing. What can I do to improve it? What can I do to make it just a little bit stronger? What's going to help make this read more clearly? What's going to fight what I want? And there's the balance between trying to get everything correct anatomically and whatnot, but also what's going to feel good. And for me, one of the things that I really want to try and do here is kind of hide that swing around the character. So it really feels like he's wrapped himself up, essentially. And I'm losing that a little bit right here. I would ideally like something like this on this side, where it's nice and simple, but that's gonna break too much. So I have to find a balance there. This would also be where actually swinging a bat myself would be a good idea. Just so I can kind of feel out like what actually happens when you swing that hard. Unfortunately, I don't have a baseball bat, so can't really do that, but I can get it pretty close at least. Let's get this hand less broken here. Okay, so I'm just looking at the silhouette that I'm creating here. How can I make that read more clearly? How can I make sure that it doesn't get messy? It's a lot of back and forth. That's fine. Let's go with that for now. Okay. So we've got that. Once again, we want to work pretty quick. So I'm not going to try and super finesse this. I am taking a little bit more time than I normally would, just because as we're explaining things, it's going to slow things down. But in all, we're just trying to get things to be understood. Okay, so we've got a new pose here. Let's copy this one. This one is going to inherit a lot of things from the previous pose. So if we look at our reference here, essentially what's happening is we've got a reversal in the body, and the front foot is stepping up as the back foot kind of swings back around the other way. So the back foot is actually going to start to rotate back this way slightly. So it goes around and it's going to arc, and I'll probably push the foot roll down a little bit more. So we get that weight pushing down. It's going to create an arc around. The front foot is going to roll back right here. Probably push a little bit of the toe tap right there so we get a nice silhouette. Now, as this happens, the foot's not just going to slide like this. It's also going to have a little bit of a tilt right there and a roll in it. So, let's see. So something like that, and maybe some side to side. And then it kind of feels like it's slipping backwards right here. So I'm going to push that forward a little bit. Just a little. Is it okay to break the rig in perspective if the silhouette's going to look good in RenderCam? Yes, that is totally fine. You can break the rig, you can scale the rig, you can do whatever you need to make sure that that rig feels good in your shot. Don't be afraid to do what you have to do. The last thing you want to do is just kind of, for lack of a better term, baby the rig. You can't break it, you can't stretch it, you can't do too much to it, you have to keep it perfect. No. If it's going to look better by exaggerating some of the mechanics in there and making it just a little bit more dynamic, do it. There are exceptions to that, though. The key being, if you're animating on video games, you don't want to go too far with that, because in video games, typically you're going to be working from multiple angles at the same time. So your camera can move around the character, your character can spin. So you're going to have to try and animate so that the character looks good from multiple angles. But if you're doing something like this, where it's just one shot camera, yeah, why not? And I don't know why this foot's floating in the air here. So let me lower that. I don't know where that came from. Okay, so that foot comes back here. And you'll notice that I really love to add a lot of little foot twists, and the feet never just kind of do this. They're always twisting and turning, and there's all these little extra details. And I put this right in my blocking. I don't wait to put this in polish. I don't wait to refine it later. I just get it in as soon as I can. Because it's just going to make it much more dynamic and interesting. So the hips, they're going to ease to a stop right here. Right there. Sound effects are necessary as you're animating. Got to make sound effects. And then the spine, I'm just going to reset it. Beep. and then let's kind of lean the character forward. The arm's going to be broken. That's fine. Let's actually, just to avoid it feeling too weird, I'm going to take the bat and let's actually reset the rotations on this as well. And yep, something like that. So now he's bringing the bat forward. Let's fix those clavicles. And where is the elbow PV? There it is. What's up with that arm? Something's going on with this arm, but we'll see. Oops. There we go. It's a little better. The bat should be kind of tucked into the body here. Let's get that neck back to a more natural state. Okay, so the bat right now is bouncing too much. It feels like it's just kind of goes back here and boing, bounces back there. I want to add a little bit more weight to the bat. Have that feeling of momentum. So I'm going to keep it further back here. Let's reset this control here. Just a little bit. Okay. Let's angle it back just a little bit so we have a little bit more drag on that bat. Something like that for now. I'm looking at the silhouette here to kind of get a feel of how that bat is moving. Okay, definitely this wrist is going to have to be fixed, but for now, that's fine. Okay. So we've got that. Swing. He keeps going forward here. I feel like this head direction feels a little off right there. So let me kind of fix that a little bit. I want to have a little bit of momentum on the head so that we feel the angle change right here. And a little bit of momentum on the rotate Y there as well. Okay. Let me look at the reference, make sure I'm not missing anything. So he goes forward, swing, and again, it's just the body really that's going forward. Now, I feel like I might be doing a little too much with the head right there. So let's try to keep the body back just a tiny bit. Something more like that. Okay. We can tweak this later. See how we feel about it. But we've got one more pose right here as the character starts to come forward again. And now he's going to shift his weight back onto the other foot. His foot is switching positions here. So he's about to lift off the ground here. Let's just set a key. On 42. So whenever I need to reposition a foot, the big thing I do is just make sure I zero everything out first. Make sure there's nothing no legacy things that are causing issues. And the foot's going to be in this position here. So I can just kind of get it, boop, right there. Right there, and then use some foot roll there. So this is going to basically get us in line for the walk out. And I might change it as we go. We'll see. It's not set in stone. Okay. Let's take a look here. A little dance. There we go. Now the back foot kind of keeps rotating and comes up. So let's do that a little bit. Okay. So we've got that nice rotation of the foot there, as you can see, as the other foot steps forward. On this pose, the character is finally going to be raising his hips, I believe. Yeah, so he's finally pushing up and forward. So kind of pushing up here. His weight is shifting back over here. Let's get this knee so it's not broken anymore. I'm just watching that knee from the front here and just make sure it doesn't feel bad. He goes to take a step. This leg is a little too bent here. So I have a few choices. I could widen that step here. I could bring his hips back. His hips will definitely need to rotate here. So that's something I'll need to do. Let's actually... His poor broken arms. Let's actually bring his arms forward just so I don't have to deal with broken arms there. And let's not stick the bat through his head. Okay. So I'm just trying to think. How do I want to push this? I feel like maybe I'm pushing too far forward right here. Okay. Watch it from the side, front view now. Okay. Comes over. It freezes a little bit right here. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm going to start changing direction. Then he can start changing direction right there. Okay. And A to the J, hello, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. See. Make sure I don't have any weird rotations on anything. I'm going to zero out the rotations of the hips here, just to make sure that as I'm animating the hips, I'm not building in any errors. Yeah, that feels pretty good. The silhouette is definitely not right, but let's think about this here. So his body is going to be leaning forward. Let's actually see what's happening with the body. So he leans forward, he kind of curves in, and then here he's got this kind of forward hunch. So I want the body to maintain that curvature to it slightly. Just a little bit right in there. He's definitely starting to straighten his body out, but we still want some twist in there. Let's reset those clavicles. Let's see. Melinda Ozel has, or Ozel, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. She has some amazing blog posts. It is wonderful. If no one has heard of her, check her out on Twitter. I forget what other social media platform she's on, but her channel on facial posing and just facial anatomy is spot on. Definitely check her out. If you want to improve your facial mechanics, it is very well worth your time to look into that. Okay, we're definitely lunging a little bit forward here, which I'm not a huge fan of. See here? We definitely have a lunge forward right there. But in mine, the character is almost like jumping forward. I'm not a fan of that. I definitely want the forward lean. So I want that in there. But let's kind of bring the back a little bit. Keep that momentum going back. Bat should be going the other way. Kind of this way. Get those elbows in place. And the bat is going to be much lower. More over here. Beep. Okay. He's going to switch his right hand up onto the bat, so I need to be very careful how far I move that. Okay, this pose is definitely not working right now. So I'm trying to think, how can I make it work? I think partly is the hips are too far forward there. I need to keep them further back. So yeah, that's already much better. He was just popping too much there. Let's kind of keep that through there. Let's push his line of action in the back here. Again, too far. I do want him to lean forward though. So this might be where I just need to exaggerate my posing over here as well. So start to lean him forward a little bit more here. Even here. So we have that bigger kind of pop right there. And then it's going to reduce the amount of motion he has later on. So we get that nice big pop and then ease. So again, this is where you don't want to get too tied down to one pose because things can change on the fly. One thing I definitely feel like is I'm not a fan of these leg poses, so I'm going to raise him up a little bit more. Because he's going to have to stand up anyway up to this point, so might as well start getting him there. Okay. Again, this is where knowing where you're supposed to be going can be very helpful. If you don't know where you're bringing your character, it can be very easy to almost lock yourself into a hole or into a spot where you're just kind of moving a character for the sake of moving them. And we don't want to do that. We want to move a character with purpose and make sure that they feel alive and what's the word I'm looking for? That there is there's a character behind it. If I'm just moving this character just for the sake of movement, that's not a character. So right here, I'm trying to look at that forward lean. Let's see if we can push that a little bit more. I want that diagonal right through. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Now, my poses are broken, my poses need work. That's still fine. As long as my main core motion is good, I'm still in a solid place. Okay. There we go. So we've got most of the swing pretty much in place now. It still needs work. This pose I'm not a fan of, but again, I don't want to over refine it, only to find out that, oops, I've got to do a whole bunch of tweaks anyway to it. So I would much rather keep it a little vague and a little kind of meh. And then later on, if I know that, yep, this is solid, I can come in and beep, clean it, no problem. And if it ends up being not good, well, I can just change it later anyway. Just adding a little tilt to the head. It felt a little flat. Okay, so what's our next key? 51. So this is where he moves his hand up on the bat. So I definitely want to copy the previous pose here. The big reason being both hands should still be on the bat. It's just this one, and this is where our constraints are coming in, needs to just go up. So just go whip up along the bat, probably somewhere around there. So something like that. Let's see what's happening between the two poses. So the foot, the forward foot is going to step and twist. So he comes here. Let's get that all the way down. Foot roll. It's going to be a little bit on the side here. Tends to walk on the sides of his feet quite often. So something like that. Make sure the foot's not pointing straight at camera right there. Okay. The other foot is it midair or just pushing off? Okay, midair. So that's easy. Just have to zero out my attributes. Beep, beep, doo. And then lift it up in the air. And then the weight of the character is transitioning over on the supporting leg. Gonna have to go forward as well. Since he's leaning forward, his hips can actually be further behind. So I don't have to worry about that so much. I can keep him further back. And let's actually get those hips in place and the spine. Let's rotate him just a little bit more. Okay, so see how he's popping forward here? If we look at the reference, let's see what we see. He should ease, if anything. Oh, no, there is a pop forward there. It's because my timing is, I've got a big gap here from 42 to 51. So that's what's causing that little bit of a boop forward. But I definitely need to adjust the hips here. Push that a little bit. Let's start to straighten the character out just a little bit more. Peter, if you really need to work on building in your holds better, there's two elements that can help with that. The first is if you're doing pose to pose animation, make sure to use copied pairs when you are blocking your shot. So copied pairs is essentially just as you're starting your hold, you're going to have a pose that's going to hold and not move. Copy that pose to the end of the hold. So they have two keys and they can stay the same, at least when you're in that first pass of blocking. And that's going to make a huge difference when you go into splines, because your character is not just going to slide from one pose to the next. So that's going to help a lot. The next element is really pushing your breakdowns. A lot of people kind of assume breakdowns are there to help with movement. And yes, that's kind of true. Your breakdowns are definitely going to hold or help things move more interestingly. But the other thing that breakdowns do is that they make holds work. Without breakdowns, or with breakdowns that aren't quite working correctly, what's going to end up happening is your character is just going to slide through the shot. So for example, here, I don't technically have holds per se, but one thing that's happening is that I'm making sure that in certain areas, like right here, see how the hips don't really move? Now, these are more key poses, not breakdowns, but the same kind of principle applies. As I break down this big swing motion and put a key in the middle, I would want to make sure that the hips aren't really moving as the arms start to move. And that's going to create a feeling of a hold within this segment instead of just having the bat slide forward and everything just move evenly. So that's going to be the big element right there. Making sure that all of that is working. Now his head direction, I'm not a fan of right now, but I kind of want to see up until like right here to kind of get when he turns his head. That way I can adjust the head angles throughout here, just to make sure those read well. Let's see. I feel like this is working pretty well overall. It's not the greatest pose, but that's fine because I can always come back to it. Once again, this is not final animation. We are not trying to make this the most epic shot ever right from this starting point here. What we are doing is we are just... That foot's sliding too much. We are just trying to block in the main ideas so that as the character can go through the scene, there's a little bit too much slide right here. As the character is going through the scene, we can make sure things are working correctly first. There we go. Now, this hand pose here is a little bit better. It's holding the bat better than this one, I think. Oh no, they're about the same. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to adjust the hand pose here. to hold the bat a little bit more cleanly. It doesn't really matter right away, but I'm going to have to do it eventually, so I'd rather just get it over with, and it doesn't take long to do a simple hand pose. One thing you really notice when you have something like autosave turned on to remind you when to save is time passes fast when you're animating. I keep getting like it's been 15 minutes since you saved. It's been 20 minutes since you saved. It's like, really? It's been 20 minutes? Didn't feel like it. Maybe it feels like it to all of you. Just watching me tweak things slowly. But sometimes animation can just fly by, or specifically time can fly by as you're animating. Okay, so that's better. It's not a final pose. I would definitely want to refine this, but at least he's actually holding the bat now. Okay. So we've got that. Okay. Now we're getting into this pose. Now let's see. I've got about 30 minutes left. Trying to think how far I'm going to get. Maybe we'll get to the next. I'd like to get to frame 60, honestly. And then we could maybe cut it there, because that's going to be the peak of the throw. And then from there, we can kind of finish next time, tomorrow. Tomorrow should be a little faster because it's essentially just a walk with the hat grab. So we're not going to have to do a whole bunch of bat mechanics. And once we're at 60, he's going to throw the bat and then it's out of the hands, which is really nice. So let's take a look at this here. 56. So I'm going to try to keep 56 as much as possible with what we have here, just because it's pretty close to what we need. Let's see, how does it feel? Goes across. I feel like the hips. Oops. Make sure I don't delete that key. Yeah, I should keep moving screen right. How do you switch between keyframes on the timeline? Yeah, comma and period. You can just kind of pop through, and this is what I usually call flipping the drawings. So if you've seen 2D animators and they flip through the papers, the comma and period keys will allow you to do that, which really helps and makes animating just a little bit more organic, which is really nice. It feels less like you're just what's the right word I'm looking for? You're just scrubbing through a timeline. And it makes it easier to kind of block things out too. So you'll notice, like, I just scrub through, make sure that foot feels right, and there we go. Let's actually copy this pose here. So we get that. Now the hips here are going to keep going screen right. But I still want an angle in here. If anything, I can maybe push this back a little bit more this way. Something like that. Let's try to bring this knee out a little bit more. I want to kind of push the line of action of the foot kind of going through here a little bit more. Get a little bit more drag in there. Now, let me double check here. 56. Okay, 56 was the passing pose. That's what it was. Okay. Hand. Let's copy the position from before. There we go. Let's get the face in there so we don't have to look at that blank expression. There we go. Just a little bit of an expression really helps. If you're just kind of looking at a blank face all the time, it gets very boring. See, so he's looking down here. Just for this pose, I'm going to take the eyelids and lower them so he doesn't feel so psychotic. Now, I'm definitely going to push the anger later on, but for now, keeping it simple. Okay, so he comes through, raises the bat. I feel like the shoulder could lead more here. That wrist is too bent right here. That's better. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the hand position. More like this. I'll have to repose the fingers a little bit, but that's not too bad. Okay, so I'm just getting a very rough hand position in place here. Not trying to get perfect. Okay. I feel like I could maybe drag it a little bit, maybe lead a little bit more with the elbow, so we're not just leading with the wrist right there. So bring the elbow up right through here. Comes through this arm. Let's kind of relax that a little bit more so we have that visual contrast. Okay, I definitely need to do a spine pass at some point to just exaggerate the spine curvature and make the character feel more organic in his back. But for now, this is okay. Okay, so he comes through. Comes there. Okay, I could keep refining this, but I do want to get frame 60 in here because 60 is going to determine a lot, because this is the the peak of the throw right here. So let's just copy everything that I had before. And then for this foot, it stays the same. This foot, let's kind of just put in the middle. Same thing with the hips right there. The reason for this is because he's walking forward. I want those hips to just kind of be a linear line. So, and then this is going to be straight up here. Probably a little further back. Comes through. The foot here is going to swing through. Let's make sure actually. I'll just pose it manually here. The reason being I don't want any foot rolls or anything like that in there. Toe tap though, we can use that. Okay, where's his foot headed? So this has to go much further in here. I want this kind of swooping arc to the foot right there. Whoop. Always look for your arcs. Even in blocking, I'm always looking for my arcs. Okay. Now, the arm here is going to be further back and stretched. Oop, don't break the elbow. I'm just kind of getting this into the angle that I want. Something like that. So we get that swing of the arm. Okay. This stream might be short due to sleep deprivation 3 hours later. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's only been 15 hours of work of sitting in front of the computer essentially so far. Because I started at 11 o'clock last night, I think. So is it longer then? We're closing in on 16 hours then? Something like that? Yeah, don't do that. Make sure you guys get rest. All of you. Get rest, get sleep. Don't overwork yourselves. It's not worth it if you can avoid it. Okay, get that nice angle right in here. I really want that shoulder to feel like it's like lifting up. I could even cheat it up a little bit here, just to really exaggerate that nice anticipation to the throw here. Now I pushed it a little too far right there. It's going to look a little weird, but I'd rather push it too far and then have to tone it back than have to try and scale everything up. Now, as he's about to throw here, his spine is reversing a little bit. And he's leaning forward there. So we're starting to get that reversal in the spine. You can see it from the side view here. His neck is kind of leading the action here a little bit. Let's make sure the head is actually also adjusting slightly. Okay. Yes, twist the chest. Good call. So right here, what's happening is I've got a disconnect in the chest. He's doing this, but the chest hasn't reacted yet. So I need to make sure I push the spine and get that sympathetic action in there. Get that chest to twist. And you can already see how much that makes a difference just doing this. Suddenly, even though I have to fix the arm in the shoulder here, it's going to make a big difference there. Even raising it up maybe this way. The hips are a little too high there. So I'll lower those there. That way I can push the spine a little bit more. And look at that, we've been another 15 minutes. Time just whizzes by. Okay, something like that. I definitely have to repose the arm a little bit now. And make sure, see how the line of the arm is flat right there? That should be up. And he's breaking frame, but that's okay. Objects or characters don't always have to stay perfectly in frame. Let's see. I feel like something's off with the hips here. But if you look at the silhouette, you can feel the stretch here, where we're going from a kind of compressed pose, stretch, opening those arms. And we're contrasting that with the legs that are narrowing. So we're getting this nice arms widening, legs narrowing. It makes for a dynamic silhouette right through there. Now this is definitely going to need a better motion right through there. Okay. And you'll notice I'm not posing out the hand really, not yet. That's going to come later. Okay. Let's kind of keep it like that for now. There's definitely a lot that I need to keep tweaking. But I want to see how I can push the next pose. So that's 63 right here, which is right there. So for this, I'm going to, once again, make sure I copy the hand pose right there. Let's copy the face. There we go. Neck is going to really lead this action here. This shoulder should be a little higher still. And there's still a twist to the spine. As he comes forward. Arm swings out. Now, one thing I do want is, as I'm looking at the pose, I really want it to feel like the bat and the elbow arm are leading this action. So the biggest change needs to be in those elements right there. So I want to feel that change. And what's happening right now is I'm feeling too much happening in the chest, I feel. Now, honestly, this also just depends on how do I want this character to throw. Does he throw with the arm or does he throw with his chest? Let's actually look at the reference. So you can see here, he's actually throwing with his arm. He brings his arm down and then his chest rotates afterwards. Right there. So I think I'm going to go with that element here, specifically because we already have the baseball bat swing over here where he leads with his chest. So it's just going to make a nice variation. And Yeti, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate that. 19 months. Jeez. Where's time going? There's a time well somewhere, and I don't know where it is. Time just keeps disappearing into it. Okay. I definitely need to push this foot up a little bit so it changes. See how suddenly this foot has just died right there? It just glues into place. I definitely want to keep adjusting that a little bit. See. Do I do Friday night dailies? No. I used to a long time ago, but I haven't in a long time. Friday nights are usually work nights for me now, so unfortunately, I just don't have time to do dailies then. The dailies that I'm doing now are the Thursday midnight, or sorry, Friday midnight, and then Friday 4 a.m. Have to do all the time zone conversions there. So those are the two dailies that I host. I feel like this leg could come in a little bit more. Yeah, it's the late ones this term. Or early. I guess it all just depends on your point of view. Okay. Let's see if I can get the elbow to really lead here. I'm going to break the wrist essentially. Yeah, I think something like that. A little bit more. So we really feel that elbow kind of lead. Or actually, let's see. Try it out. What happens if we bring the arm up and we're leading more with the wrist? Nah, I feel like the elbow is going to make it stronger. Now, one thing I'm worried about here is how the bat is flipping. So the end of, or the handle of the bat is screen left, and then here it's screen right in comparison to the hand. Now, anatomically, that's correct, but visually, I'm hoping it doesn't create a pop. So we'll see. As we add the breakdown, because we've got 2 frames to play in there with, or 3 frames, I should say. We should be able to smooth that out. So I'm not going to worry too much about it now. But it's definitely something on my mind. Okay. So for now, I think this is pretty good. It's definitely, it needs a lot more work in certain areas, but it's not terrible. Just fixing some translation issues there. We get a nice smooth motion right through there. Okay. So this is going to be needing to just go a little bit further back here. There we go. Now, one thing I always like to do is just look at your shot from different angles and see how it works. So, for example, if I take a look at this here, how does this feel from the back? And actually not too bad. How does it feel from the other side? The neck is definitely very far forward there. Not a bad thing. But yeah, it feels mechanically not bad. We definitely need to push our poses, like right here. See how there's a bump in the line of the body here. Honestly, it's not too bad as long as we have this view feeling good. But there's a lot of refinement we still need to do. But the big thing is making sure that the mechanics are working correctly. A top view is also fun to look at for me. Just because you can kind of get an idea of how the character is traveling through the scene a little bit more clearly. So let's call it here. And then tomorrow we're going to be able to finish the last half where we throw the bat and then throw the hat. And then maybe add another breakdown here or there. But let's just see how the shot is looking here. And we'll play only the keyframes and make sure I actually have something selected with keys. Right there. Let's see, and save first. Not bad. So I'm thinking, technically with a blocking pass, we don't need to put too much detail in here. Not yet. Wookie, this is my first blocking pass. Just getting everything in place. The previous pass that I had done was, you could consider it a blocking pass technically, but it's more of a layout blocking. It was just kind of making sure that the character transitioned through the scene correctly. For me, I don't really consider that a blocking pass because there's so little refinement that it's more just kind of selling the idea. At this point, this is what I would call my blocking pass. Not my storytelling blocking, which would be only the storytelling poses, which is about 8 to 12 poses that just describe the story. This is blocking the scene, blocking the motions. And even for a blocking pass, there's a few areas where I would put some breakdowns here. Specifically on the swing right here, I would probably put a breakdown somewhere in there between this pose and this pose, because right now we're kind of missing, how is he swinging? Is he just kind of swing very weakly? Is it a big powerful swing? I'm not getting this in my first pass of blocking. It's not necessary per se, not really, but at least for me, it's going to help describe that swing just a little bit more. And then the same thing, so one right here, and then I would put another breakdown between these two, just to help describe that swing even more, show how much power is he putting in here. And then from there, maybe I'd put another breakdown right here, just because this is a long period where we don't have a key compared to everything else around it. So it kind of creates this weird pause when we just play through it. You'll notice that it's kind of just like, boonk, pauses, it holds, and then goes again. And that's just throwing my timing off. So I'd probably put a breakdown there just to help kind of equalize the timing of my keys in that section. And then we just need a few more poses here at the end as he walks away. Now you'll notice that in splines, it still looks awful. Definitely better than it did before, but doesn't look great. We still need a lot more breakdowns to really describe this action, especially on that swing. The swing, we are probably going to be keying this on 2s to make sure that probably 1s or 2s, to make sure that we really describe this action clearly and just get that good feel in there. The other thing that I'll probably do is retime it to be a little faster, so we have a little bit more of a hold here, and then just really swing through there much more powerfully. But yeah, we're getting there. So we've got the first half, aside from 3 more keys in place here. So I would put 3 more at the beginning here. And then we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 more at the end to describe the walkout, at least 8. So we're looking at 11 more keys to put in. How many did we do today? Technically, we were just kind of fiddling around with certain ones of them, but we've refined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not that many, just 10 keys. But to be fair, a lot of it is very complex swing mechanics right in there, making sure the arms and silhouettes and everything are reading clearly. So it took some time, 3 hours, or probably around 2.5 to 2 hours, 2 hours to 2.5 hours to get this in here, which is fast for a student, but slow for me at this point. If I wasn't explaining things, this would probably take maybe an hour, maybe less. I'm not sure. It really depends on how much trouble I was having with silhouettes. But we're starting to get there. That's the important thing. And we're getting the body mechanics in there. And that's the big thing that I want right now. For a shot like this, my goal is to make sure that the body mechanics work. From there, I can exaggerate. If my body mechanics aren't working and I'm just trying to make things super cartoony right away, at least for this type of shot that I'm doing now, it could easily break. And I could fall into a situation where I'm just moving things for the sake of moving them. And because it's such a complex like mechanic, the swing of a baseball bat is not just a wave of the arm. I want to make sure I get that right. I want that feeling in there that it's actually a baseball bat swing and not just a random swipe of an object. But yeah, we're gonna get there. A few more breakdowns, a few more keys, and then we can start adding more details, like some hand motions in there. We've already got a lot of foot refinement in there, which is really nice. That's something I always love. Like if you watch just the feet, you'll notice that there's never really a point where they just glue to the ground. It doesn't feel like they're slipping. Not all the time. There are moments where the feet will slip because there's less friction or the character's putting a lot of energy into something. But I never want a moment where the foot just kind of freezes and just locks onto the ground and just stays there for 50 frames or something like that. Not in a shot like this, at least. So yeah, trying to think if I have anything else to talk about right now. I think most of it's going to come down to tomorrow. Let's see, would this shot be a shot that could be in a reel? Yeah. I don't know if I would put it in my reel. Maybe. If it's going to go into my reel, I would want to put a lot of polish elements into here. So I would want to really refine the face, add a lot of hand motions, all of that. But even with that, this is not a shot, this specific one, this one right here, is not a shot I would put in my reel, specifically because it's the reference that we're using for this is from a movie. And we are following that reference pretty closely because this is a body mechanics analysis. We're not trying to invent new motion. We're not trying to make a cartoony version of this. We are just trying to analyze and understand this motion. That's the core, and then push it to be a little bit more dynamic. But it is still from a film. And because of that, I would not put this on my reel, because someone who worked on, in this case, this is from Ant-Man, someone who worked on Ant-Man, maybe I'm applying to ILM or why can't I think of the name? It starts with M. It's in the UK. Well, anyway, if I'm trying to apply to ILM and some of the animators worked on Ant-Man, they might, MPC, that's it, thank you. They might remember that shot because sure, there's no animation on it, but they all watched the movie. And then they see my shot on my reel and like, look, I'm applying, yay, hire me. And it's like, wait, we've seen this. And they'll look at it and go, oh, it's just that shot, but animated. No. And I've seen reels like that, where I've seen people apply to a studio and I'll see the shot and it's like, wait, I've seen that before. And Cameron and I will go through and it's like, wait, let's double check. And it's basically just a copy of a scene from a film. And they might tweak a little bit of it, but I've seen at least 3 reels where it was basically a direct copy of a film. And one of them was a copy of an animated film. So they just kind of took the elements of the animated film and they created their own version of it, but it was so similar still that is like, oh, we've seen this. We know who did this before, and now it's just kind of using elements of it. So you have to be very careful when you're using reference or using inspiration from movies, TV shows, anything like that, because people might recognize it. If you use enough elements, so for example, if I just use the baseball swing from this reference, but then I had the character do something else with the bat from another piece of reference, and then the character walked off in a different way from a third piece of reference, and I kind of stitched them all together, that could work because I'm using inspiration from one part and then building it into something new. But this would be too much for one reel. So I would personally not use this on my reel.